All right. So I'm just going to leave the sidebar up here. What I was going to do first then is just talk through, the idea behind it. So it's a natural planning versus unnatural planning method. And the example that I like that is super easy really is just like Thanksgiving dinner. You come home and the kitchen's a mess and you don't have anything that you need to cook. You don't have to sit down and do like goal planning exercises. You just naturally know once you define what you want to do, how to do it. And the same thing goes with real estate, really, where it's like once you've done it a couple of times, you don't really have to think about it. But then it starts to get stressful when you have more than one. Like, how do you build and make it scalable to the point that you could maybe hire an assistant and they can just run deals for you? So off that same example, what you want to do, it's defining the purpose. So I want to cook a turkey because it's tradition. And you imagine the positive desired outcome of that result, because it's a pain in the ass to do all of that. It really is. It's a process. It's not quite obviously the sale transaction of real estate, but it takes planning and effort. But again, you don't have to sit down and think through like, what are all the steps? You do it naturally. You clarify based on like, okay, well, what time's everyone coming over? How many people are coming? And stuff like those simple questions. And then you brainstorm into, I'll go to the store, I have to clean the kitchen, and all of that naturally happens once you work through and define the outcome you want that hasn't happened yet. You reflect on it and you take the organized ideas and sort them, through priorities, and then engage with it and just kind of go one at a time through the list. And that's obviously what you want to do for any deal. And again, I'm going to go through and show how I actually do this with real estate. But I think what Tim and I talked about, and there's a million different offices that are very guilty of this, where the unnatural planning method is what probably 90% of meetings in my life that I've been in end up being, which is, hey, we want to do this thing, just go start doing it. We want to have more buyers and sellers. We'll call everybody and start doing open houses, which is essentially the same as ordering 6 turkeys before deciding how many people are going to come over. You can just do open houses and call for sale by owners, but you don't have any defined outcome from that. And that's really easy to do. We're like, I want to work with like 20 deals this year. Okay, that means I have to do this number of open houses. Because if you don't define the outcome, so number one, we want more clients. Number two, then it becomes, you just start doing open houses and you're like feeling lost, and someone eventually goes, well, I need to get more organized. And then you start just drawing boxes around the problem, and then you redraw them where you just basically are going, well, here's the problem. We need more clients. You're like, great. And it never ends with, what are we going to do about that? We'll just do more open houses. And then you just cycle. In the usual next step is a meeting will end without deciding now what. So you have to do another meeting, and you just keep going through that process where it's like, well, we need more clients. We do open houses. And you're just like, okay, I'm just doing them. I don't have a goal of how many, like there's no defined purpose of when you are done. And if you do that with a meeting where you're trying to do something bigger, you just kind of cycle there and just keep focusing on the problem. So eventually like a manager will go, well, let's hire a consultant. And they ask you, well, what are you trying to do here anyway? And they make you define your purpose, and they make you go through and organize the steps where it's like, I want to do 36 deals. Well, that means you only really have to do like 15 open houses over 52 weeks and call your friends. And, and for a consultant, it's the same thing. They force you to organize it. And that's why people always go like, why did we pay him so much money? We could have just done all that on our own, and like, that's true, but you didn't do it. So that's why you paid them. And the last piece of it that I like is if you don't know why you're doing something, then you can never do enough of it. And I feel like that could be summarized like that's real estate, in a nutshell. And, you need to know when you've met the purpose and the goal and when you're on track. And if you don't have a clear directive, you'll just go, in a circle until you retire and never know, what you're trying to do. So let me,
do you have that Is that uploaded in some form in the group yet? I mean, if not, we can kind of summarize it and post it out just so everybody can reflect back and take a look at them.
Well, so I mean, I'm recording this right now. And so what I'm going to do here, obviously, is just share this real quick. And this is just an example of the more recent deal that I did and how I run them, where I just built a Google spreadsheet, and I use this example where like now what I'm using is a program called Trello, but that's something that, I mean, EXP provides access for free. It's a CRM system, but I like this easier. It's easier for me to do this one because it's basically analog. It's as close as you can get to a piece of paper planner, because I look at this and I won't get distracted by my email. I can actually do it and work through it. So it's, again, just the property address, the simple aspects of it. And you just fill in the dates and move across where.
Hold on, we're looking at your calendar right now.
Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate you saying that. Hold on one second.
It was up for a second.
All right. So we want this one. All right. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, just Google Sheets, very simple. It just has the basic outline of it where, number one, obviously there's a whole different conversation about like defining your purpose of how many deals you want to do. But I think for this, I did this without realizing what it was. It's a natural planning method where number one, the purpose is running the deal. What do I want the outcome to be? The successful completion of that. How am I going to do that? I need to have everything in one spot. I need to have the phone numbers for the contacts for everybody. I need to be able to refer to it quickly on my computer, obviously now, or on my phone. And that's really the basics. It doesn't have to be too crazy. And allows me to take everything and organize it into the next step across. So, with this one example deal, executed date, just checking the box as I move across everything. And, if something needs updated, again, just updating that as I go. So it just has all the dates across, as you, can clearly see, contingencies, home warranty, all the information that I would need for a deal. And then the financial aspect of it where, again, it's not a secret. You can look up the final sale prices, so it doesn't really matter to share, but, is it a buyer listing? And then this allows me to track the number of deals that I've done and then move it, off of the under contract page. This is the same to once it's closed. And it allows me to just go through, have it broken down where like after the team split, how much money am I going to make? After all of the individual, like you can see, it takes away the transaction fee times percentages. It just automatically does it all for me. Until after, I take away taxes. This is how much money I should have saved in preparation for taxes at the end of the year. The number that I actually have done, and then the volume of sales so far this year. It's just number one, what do I have to do with the dates? Number two, who's involved in this deal, all their information. Number three, financials. And it's simple. It took me forever to make it, but again, that example is primarily what I wanted to share. And then the last thing that I wanted to go through today is, to talk through number one, what you guys use, what you do currently, if you have something similar. Because again, I know this isn't perfect. It's actually not perfect at all, but I didn't have anything to start. And then, with that, number one, was going to see what you guys do. And then number two, just wanted to share just the beginning. Can you see the scripts book?
Yeah. Should we discuss prior to diving in?
Yeah. And the ending was just to talk through like back to, okay, buyer lead scripts, just some ideas on what you can say to people, just to help refine and give maybe some new perspective on, how you actually get more clients, because again, just as important as running the deal smoothly.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe just give a,
sure. I mean, can you guys, I'm talking into Pete's computer. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up. Good.
Yep,
All
loud
right,
and clear.
So when Pete and I were kind of discussing this over the last couple of days, we were talking through, you know, what's going to work for me versus Pete versus you is probably going to be quite a bit different in terms of how you track it. But so like for me personally, the most number of transactions I've had in escrow at one time after in my first year was 6, and I was like, oh hey, great, that's amazing. I'm very excited that the fruits of my cold calling and whatnot works. But the point in that is that during that time when I didn't really necessarily know or have time allocated towards certain activities, my brain's default would then be, oh my gosh, I feel like there's so much that I need to do. I need to be doing this. Whereas when you have a tool like this, so what I use is somewhat similar. It's not as in-depth basically, because I don't, for the way that I operate necessarily at this stage, need to have something as specific. When it's all out in front of you like that, it personally helps me. I know it helps Pete, but it's like a one-stop resource that you can pull on your phone, tablet, laptop, if you're traveling, and you know, sync it with your calendar. That way you know what certain deadlines are, and you don't start to feel so overwhelmed, which then in turn prevents you from, say, making more prospecting calls because you say, oh, I have all this stuff I need to do. That's at least my take on it, because I whiteboarded my first year, and I can't take my whiteboard on an airplane with me. I could try, but I don't think they'd let me.
right.
So
And that's the thing too, where it's not killing yourself by trying to find the best like CRM app. You know, it's something that's like, I like the paper planning, or Google Sheets is essentially electronic paper, because it's you can repeat it and it travels with you. I mean, you just nailed it. Where like the whole idea, and again, the phrase I like, it's an external mind. You know, because like the book Atomic Habits, the mind is really good at making decisions and it's really bad at remembering anything. You know, because like you're like, oh, I need to buy toilet paper when you're like at work. You know, ideally you would remember that when you're at the store, but that's why everyone makes a grocery list, because you know you need these things, but it's impossible, not impossible, but it's very difficult. You're like, I need to go to the store. You're in the store. What do I need to buy? There's 3,000 things there. And that's the same with real estate, where it's like you wake up, what do I need to do? I could do so many things. And if you don't have it in the same spot. So I mean, do you still use the whiteboard now, or
I kind of do both. Like with EXP's enterprise system, you know, we can download, we can export to CSV or Excel in terms of all the transactions we have, and that's more historical. So I've used that platform and then added in a couple of different rows towards the end to track active deals. But then I started noticing this, and this is a positive thing. I started using that as kind of a like a personal financial statement. I started to like track my net worth on another page. I'd track other like investment properties, or I started to use this Google Sheet as like a one-stop composite shop to what does my brain normally think and or stress about.
yeah,
which I found really helpful in the last 6 months. I think one other point to hit on this too, for anyone who also is going to be listening to this later, I think a good because let's be honest, if you're going to do this all on your own, can you probably remember it and put it on a whiteboard and do just fine? I think so. Yes, I did it for a while. But for anyone that definitely wants to grow and expand and, you know, leverage their time with an assistant or a team, it's going to be really difficult if you're so scrambled up front to just last minute plug it into a system. So the earlier you build the system out and it works for you and you can train somebody on it, even a VA maybe, the easier it becomes. And then if that person has a different style, you can iterate with what works for them too. But that's at least the way I'm looking at it, as a discipline that I might not need at all times, but I know will help me in the long run.
yeah. I mean, and off of that too, it has to be, it doesn't matter what it is, but you just said it, where like you didn't trust your whiteboard anymore.
Yeah.
So you had to find something else. And so as soon as you stop trusting it, it's useless
Mhm.
because you won't check it. And that's where like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna track this thing in this new app for like exercise, where like I just never use it because I forget that I even downloaded it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where it is on my phone. It just can't be like, it has to just be like the top center of your browser in, again, whatever it is, whether it's just like the paper notebooks. I literally have two of them stacked right in front of me because it's very difficult for me to type like notes on my phone to plan something or to think through it on my computer, because as soon as I get a text or whatever, it just ruins that workflow.
Yeah.
So again, something that I really think benefits is just keeping it somewhat analog, at least to start,
Mhm.
because that if it's just a paper calendar, just being like buyer inspection date Friday, just writing that, and then you can look at your monthly thing and be like, okay, now I can get an idea of where my life has to go.
Yeah, and
So
that that then ties in with time allocation in your calendar. And I think kind of one last thing I'll hit on with this too is um I think that it's so common with how much information that we have thrown at us every day and all of the tools that are out there. So why does nobody do this? I would say for me personally, in the beginning, I had access to too many things. And so with an overcrowded mind in terms of options, maybe your brain's default is, oh, well, I don't think I'm going to do any of it. It's overwhelming. So I think just committing to a method that works for you. In this case, this is what Pete's is. Mine's fairly similar. Finding like your method that you will stick to. And if there's this new cool gadget out there, maybe it's not even worth your time unless you know for sure it's a little bit better of a tool. But I don't know, just my thoughts.
so I guess, off of that, Mike or Dan, whoever would want to share, like, what have you found, either something you use that's similar to this, or do you even use something like, how do you track deals currently once they're under contract? I guess, what system do you follow, or anything really on that?
So luckily, well, I won't say luckily, but through the first year, most deals I had going on, I had two double-ended deals going at the same time, and I had one listing that, so it was very easy to track. I have a point where I've got to get all these apps kicking and everything else. So I'm kind of like watching along, like, all right, I'm going to use this one or I'm going to use this one. I haven't had the need to, have the full whiteboard with everything else. It's been pretty easy
Right.
to keep tabs on.
Well, I guess that makes sense, because I mean, you can just use the agreement of sale as that, basically, where you just can, it just has to be something you look back to. I mean, seriously, like, that's something that, I mean, that's what I did with previous work, where it's just like with medical records, like they just have a book, it's a piece of paper. And that's why, but the problem is electronic medical records is better, because the book has, it's very error prone. And so I guess my thought is like, it's not that it's right or wrong, but it's hard to, it's just those things that helps you fall asleep at night, sort of thing, where like you can know 100% that you're done with the inspection because you were at the inspection, it's your only deal. But do you know, and again, I mean, probably you can remember, but do you know the phone number for the mortgage lender? Because that's not on the agreement of sale, so like those sort of things, where it just, and that's, I think, how it builds, like, so again, it's not right or wrong, like you can do that with one or two deals, but in order to get to three or four deals, you have to, I think, truly have to know where all that is, because you'll just be laying in bed at night being like, oh crap, I don't know if I did the thing that I needed to do. But if you have a place that you can be like, I did the thing I needed to do, it just allows you to decompress. So again, it's just more of a suggestion. I don't know the right answer really, but again, is it something that you've thought about, like, trying, or like, do you think that would be beneficial to have? I mean, I can send you this template just for the record.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, I just haven't had the full need to have all that. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of
Yeah.
those, as necessity, you evolve.
Yeah.
So
And that's a very good point too, because it's something that, yeah, if I was doing 500 deals, like this wouldn't work at all. If I was doing more, it would have to be upgraded in some way. So, Mike, what about you? Have you implemented something like that?
Well, my best organizational tool is Debbie.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I don't know if your brokerage uses zip forms,
Yeah, that's all West Penn usually.
and I mean, there's opportunity for some tracking there, database, CRM, and checklists. If you set it up, you do have to manually set up notifications on the checklists. Sometimes I'm faithful to do that, most times not.
Right.
So we help each other a good bit in that way.
Okay.
But zip forms just, I mean, kind of automatically lets you know about upcoming dates, closing dates, mortgage approval dates. So I try to make use of that as a good tool.
Okay.
And Deb does keep track of that manually. She has a form she created, and a lot in calendar. And as far as contacts, I mean, I do have the zip form mobile available on my phone, but I add people to contacts constantly on my phone, so that phone numbers and necessary information is right there. And
Yeah.
so I know who's calling.
Yeah.
You know, if
And
I have a buyer's agent call and request to see one of our listings, I'm adding them into my contacts right away.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean that's something that I've started to do as well. And I found that to be beneficial then, because then in 6 months when that person calls me again, I'm like, hey Mike, I just know, as opposed to not having their number. Yeah, well, you said it too. My only problem with zip forms was that it didn't have like a mobile app that worked that well. And so it works, but not that well. Like you have to go in on like the browser part of your phone and like zoom in so it's smaller, and like that you just couldn't type any, like it's the same thing that the MLS, like you can access it through the internet on your phone, but you have to hit like view full site, and then you have a laptop screen on your tiny phone, and you have to zoom in to type like 123 Main Street. And you can still do like a seller's disclosure, send it to people, whatever. But I don't think that's ever going to change, because the West Penn multi-list has no reason to create an app that's better. It would cost them money that they don't need to spend, because it's a monopoly, and that's how that works. But either way, I don't control it. It's okay.
Start your own.
Well, that's how I mean, never mind. That's what it is. It's a bunch of big companies that got together to make a system, and it does work. So it's not right or wrong. It just needs upgraded. But the process though of thinking through it, having help, it sounds like, is the biggest thing that I heard you say. It would be more difficult to, not to do it all on your own. Like that's, and it's Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak is like my favorite example, where like one of them was they were both computer programmers, but like one had the goods and the other one was the sales guy. It's just like in tandem. I think every big successful group has someone to turn to, or a system to turn to, that helps manage everything. I mean, it's Henry Ford with the freaking assembly line. It's just like he won because he just thought of a better way to do all this stuff faster. And it's kind of the same thing. So
I wonder, sorry, this is on topic but semi off, right? So I'm always curious, with the people that are licensed in multiple states, you have to think that those individuals have some very good systems in place. So I think with like the direction that technology and our industry in general is probably moving to, is that it's entirely possible you can live just about anywhere, sell anywhere within reason, if you have the right resources on the ground. So I am interested to see how, tracking tools, like say if you have a team across the US, that technically you're still giving leads to, you still have a normal team structure, whatever, what the best method of tracking that is. And I would say to that, probably the one that is the easiest to adopt for new people bringing on, the one that is, I don't know, the most transparent, and it doesn't necessarily, it could be accessed at any point, like a Google Sheets,
Yeah.
where, you know, if I'm in Colorado snowboarding and someone's back here, I can update it, then they see it in real time, something like that. So I guess something to just keep in mind for the future direction of what anyone is looking to do
Yeah,
in their business.
because it's duplicatable. That's what
Right.
I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Where it can be duplicatable, and again, that's one of the favorite phrases, you know, where it's not a business unless it's duplicatable. Like the consistency of the food at McDonald's or the consistency of the food at like the Michelin star restaurant, it has to be duplicatable. Otherwise, it's not consistently possible to do the thing at any level. And so I really think it's I mean, for me, I know it is. It's just a big obstacle for growth. And that's why I felt that it was worth, you know, 30 minutes
Yeah.
of work through talking on, you know, what you do, with the ultimate idea of, I mean, I said it 3 times. I don't know. I do know that mine needs improvement, and then just working through the next thing, you know, the next version of that. So um again, I hope that's helpful in some way. You know, again, we wanted to just kind of spend today talking a little bit further, because, you know, watching these videos, you know, that a lot of that content is either available online or something that you can buy on your own. But I think within an hour time frame, like the nitty gritty stuff, we're like just doing specifically this for a little bit, hopefully is more valuable. So, you know, again, the outline that that I have, I can forward, just I'll put it in the Facebook group that we have along just with this recording. You know, again, but we don't have to go, you know, for the entire hour here, but I did want to just go through, you know, that number one. And I guess if you guys do you have any questions or anything that you're thinking of as far as like maybe how you could improve what you currently are doing? Yeah. Skip the buyer stuff.
I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, if it's valuable to kind of go through some of it,
Okay.
I don't know what everyone's competing requirements look like. But
Yeah, because again, at the moment, I also wanted to try to keep it, you know, short and sweet, where it's something that this is, let me pull it back up real quick. It's useful information, but this is something where like, you know, it feels like for the past couple of weeks, what we've been trying to do is like, this is a 67-page document, you know, the same thing that we sent the business planner out to everybody. And I was joking on one of the calls we did, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, you know, where it's like 15 pages of business planning. Has anyone done this? And it's like, no, you know, no one does it, which, you know, I've done it now. It took me a month. And, you know, that's why I didn't necessarily want to go into the whole scripting, but the reason I'm doing this right now is because this is going to be recorded and I can look back to it and share this with people. You know, with the buyer lead script, the ideas really are, it's just the 5-minute script where this is what I wanted to find: just selection, affordability, convenience, reason for the call. Hi, this is John Smith. I don't even say the website or anything. Just getting right to it. The reason I'm calling you is because you requested information on 123 Main Street. What are you looking to find out? How can I help you with that property? And then they just go like, I'm not interested. Oh yeah, I'd love to see it. You know, the compelling offer, sharing the strategy. How do you run deals? How do you, you know, just like talking through it with them. This gets into a whole bunch of information, but just the ultimate goal is I want to set an appointment with somebody. And once the appointment is set, in the middle of the screen, establishing the motivation and timing. It's all timing and motivation, you know. So the last 2 minutes here, really, it's in order to get 7 deals running at one time. I really think it just has to be like one system that you use where like Tim crushes it for sale by owner calls. Pretty much that's all he's doing. And when he's working with buyer leads, it might be because he did for sale by owner calls, and that person who's selling their house is buying another house. He's not actively doing open houses every weekend. And again, I mean, you do online leads from our team, but there's just the one or two pillars. You know, I said it in a previous webinar with Matt Durbin was teaching, business planning. And I kind of caught myself in it because he was saying, like, I think if you just did one source of leads and went super deep, you could do 40 deals off anything. And my objection to that was like something along the lines of, yeah, that's not enough though. And I'm like, he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, you're right. I need to really reevaluate that. And what it's caused me to do is to go back into how I've been generating business, pay attention to what works, and then don't really change too much. It really helps me kind of streamline the answer to what I need to do today. And then for that, don't go too deep into, like, we have a CRM program that allows you to do like automated campaigns and like different deals where you switch from category 1 to category 2 and it automatically sends people emails. Like, that takes 6 months to build. And it's not perfect. And the last thing that you want is, once you get a deal under contract, to be sending the wrong people emails. And you did that by accident once. Like, he put someone on an automatic campaign that was shared to us by a partner in Wisconsin. And I mean, you tell it real quick. Like,
Yeah, so here's a good lesson learned. So for everybody that ever listens to this, you can laugh at my face if you want. So anyway, with our CRM, there's some very good drip campaigns for anyone in any stage of buying or selling. So in this particular instance, it was somebody who's going to be selling within the next 6 to 8 months. And we had first gotten the system. I didn't fully look into everything that the drip campaign had. And in there was an email, and we're in Pittsburgh. The email said, are you still looking for homes in the Twin Cities? And I just got an angry email back about how we are in Pittsburgh, not Minnesota, and that he will not be using anyone from our company. That was an $800,000 house that closed a few months afterwards. And so I went through the pain of actually looking it up and calculating what I lost in commission.
it's like a $24,000 email.
Yeah, exactly right. So I guess what the point in that is, understand your systems and understand maybe you don't need to know 100% of it, but definitely understand, what you're using, what methods you're using, what all that encompasses. I think one thing I was going to say on the strategy of doing one thing and you could do 40 deals, I think that's a good point. I think, I feel like everyone's going to gravitate towards one thing. I would say if somebody a year or two ago, it seems like, only did Zillow leads when they weren't $6,000 per lead, they could have done very well only using Zillow leads. But with how much they've changed, their pricing and everything like that, if that's all that person did, they're probably going to be hurting for a period of time. Whereas if you can be a little bit resilient and adaptive based on how the marketplace is changing, I think it's just a skill set that we all are working towards. It's just being resilient on some of the changes we're seeing.
Right. And to that though too, I guess the last piece of it, where it does certainly help to have, like, if you do for sale by owner calls and online leads and one more, multiple pillars, but are you actually doing all three of those well? Because the people who did Zillow leads only, I mean, if you can't pivot in business, then you should not be in business. So it's just like, oh, well, Zillow is more expensive. Now I guess I have to learn how to call people. And if you can't do that, then you're going to fail somewhere eventually. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, if AT&T folds, I don't know. Like, it's I'm just trying to think of a ridiculous example, but nobody thought, is usually the first thing to like preface. And that's why we lost. It's like, no, it's just because you didn't try something different.
Yep.
And as soon as you lose the ability to like iterate and duplicate, you're going to fail. I mean, it's just the truth. So
yeah.
But yeah, system to track things, keeping it simple, it really does benefit, because I guess the final piece is, I've been deep into the books again, Atomic Habits. It's impossible to improve a habit that isn't established. You have to establish it first. You have to establish the habit of tracking deal flow in order for it to improve to 10 deals a month. If you don't do it well with one, you're never going to get to 10 because you're just sucking it too bad at number one, and you feel like crazy. You're like, oh my God, I got 4. How would I ever handle 10? And if you just, you don't get it solid at the baseline, you're never going to be able to build it. So just a closing statement, I guess. If you guys maybe have any other questions or thoughts, we
I have a
can.
question
Yeah.
for Tim.
Yes, sir.
Did FSBO calls come naturally to you, or is that something you learned
So
to be successful at? How do you do it? Because I'm not good at it.
yeah, so Mike, as far as some of the confidence I gained with them, it was definitely just repetition, role playing, picking to a script that I liked. So I'll give you an example. Somebody on our team who is very, I don't want to say aggressive, but is a little bit more of a pit bull on the phone. There's a certain script that he uses, whereas I use a more conversational script that kind of fits my style of communicating with people on the phone. So I found kind of what script I gravitated towards, felt most comfortable using. And then it came to, watching YouTube videos of someone using that script, seeing live calls, and then really trying to mirror and match what they were doing on those calls. And then the hardest part is just picking up the phone and doing it. I give myself the 5-second rule of, I open an email just to procrastinate, and then I go, nope, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 call. And then once you start going, you'll keep going. And that's where I really gained a lot of the confidence that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're really good at it.
Thank
So,
it's a perishable skill. If I take 2 weeks off, it's hard to dive right back in, but
it's like the gym.
Yeah, it's like anything. I mean, anything, I feel like maybe this is a little bit of a hot take, but anything extremely valuable skill wise also seems to be very perishable if you don't regularly apply it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but it's definitely with this, so.
Yeah. I mean, and Mike, your question just made me think of too, it's basically just learning Spanish, where Tim just said it, where like, I found the script that worked for me. Like I didn't have to learn, Shakespearean Old English. Like there's a million different languages. It's like, I just found the one that I wanted. I didn't want to learn Italian or French. They're pretty similar, but Spanish was the thing that I focused on. It felt comfortable for me because I wanted that one. You can't, I think the struggle is like, you can't do a mega open house if you don't like doing open houses. You can't be the best at that. You can't
enjoy it.
You can't just embody someone else's thing. It's if you want to do it, you have to pay attention to that friction point. And again, it's you watch YouTube videos. It's what you just said. Like you're learning Spanish because I got a C+ in Spanish in high school, but everyone who is like fully immersed in the language doesn't even think about it eventually.
Yeah.
And then eventually you don't even think about it with the calls. You're just talking to people. And people hesitate on the word script, but that's what a dictionary is.
Yeah.
It's an organized script.
Sometimes if you deviate too much from it, it's not going to work out for you. It's written a certain way for a certain reason. But Mike, to that last question too, I think that's why I tend to gravitate more towards FSBO calls than expireds. Because I don't like being super over the top with people. I want to just connect on a basis, be relatively calm, but have a good conversation. Expireds are typically very pissed off. And if you have a more aggressive, get at you attitude on the phone, you might do better with that. I've done okay with them, but I'm better with FSBOs. So I think that ties into like the bigger strategy of I'm somebody who does well in crowds, say, so I enjoy open houses, or I don't do well in crowds and I don't know how to handle mass chaos. Like last year when you'll do an open house and there's 25 people that showed up, I would literally have to police people at the door. I felt like a traffic cop.
You're just a bouncer.
If you're not able to do that, then maybe you don't like open houses. It's all suited to your personality type, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty and the challenge of this whole job.
There's a lot of this. That's what one major thing I do like about, this industry in general. There's so many different ways to do it. And there's a ton of people successful in a ton of different ways. It's just, what do you gravitate towards the most? What's in most alignment with like your beliefs and your personality style?
Yeah, I got a question for both of you guys, actually. So
Yes,
you
sir.
guys, like Pete, I know you do a lot with buyers, things like that. Tim, you're
Yeah.
more like, targeting FSBOs and things like that. So you guys live like, well, Pete, you're like towards what, like Mount Lebanon area, I
Yeah,
think.
I'm from Mount Lebanon. I live in the South Side area now.
And
Oh, okay.
I'm like North Hills area.
Okay, because like the one thing that I deal with, due to the fact that I'm working 9 hours a day before I even jump into real estate,
Yeah.
it's I've got a small area where like I go through and I hate to cherry pick because we're always trained not to cherry pick. But I'm like, what towns are within like a half hour of me? What can I call? So I feel kind of hamstrung there. But like, do you guys ever do that, or do you guys like go for FSBOs or like an hour and a half away, or
It's a good
just
question.
Yeah. You
I-
go first if you want.
Yeah, I mean, so the initial thought is when I started, I just did whatever, man. Like, it was like, do you want to do something? It was like, sure, I can come at 8 p.m. on Thursday. Like, I just, I wasn't doing a whole lot else. And that is detrimental after a certain amount of time because starting usually is easier with buyers. And then you progressively shift into more sellers is just a general trend in real estate. And I think primarily for me, a lot of it is buyers were the easiest thing. And I'm 30, all my friends are in the range of looking to be either first-time home buyers, potentially selling and moving to the second home. And so sphere of influence was an easy thing as well because I'm from here, like I just said, from Mount Lebanon, from the South Hills. But I mean, I would be driving to Shaler all the past summer. I was working with two buyers there. And I started to notice like when I started, I didn't care. Like I was excited to go. I was like, perfect. I'm driving to Shaler in the snow and I'm thrilled. And now it's like, man, I don't want to go to McCandless at the moment. It's a hassle to drive to Butler and paying attention to that, where it's just like, that means I need to change something. And so it's trying to get to the focus of like the same thing with the deal stacking. I said, like, if you can't do 2 deals well, you'll never be able to do 10. I can't do 10 buyers all across the United States. I can't be driving to McCandless, then to Peters Township, then to like East and West. So it's just not focusing just on an area, but it's more focusing, it's on an area, it's on a price range, and it's on like a certain personality in the sense that like I want to work with sellers in the South Hills. I want to work with buyers and sellers in that area primarily, and it's hard because then you start to have to say no to things. But that's when you can refer to other people, like there's other things you can do. But if, I don't know if that answers your question, I guess, but I kind of just picked an area where I was like, this is ideal and perfect. And then if it's not ideal and perfect, I have to gauge based on other priorities.
Yeah.
Because I can't drive an hour and a half just on a whim to go to a new buyer appointment for someone who's not going to show up. Like that's a waste of my entire day. And I've done that before.
Yeah, that's hard, especially when you don't get someone under contract.
Yeah.
Dan, what I would say is like with your finite amount of time between your other job, this is where I'm trying to get way more intentional. I'm progressing at, but it's like that Sunday planning exercise we did, right? Every week's going to look different, as I'm sure it will for your work schedule too. So the sooner you plan that out, say Sunday for the week, and it can adjust at the end of each day when you plan for the next day. I think looking at how much time you have to do these activities will then in turn shift to your availability to be able to go to a certain proximity. Beyond that, like what I would say, at least for me personally, like if I'm calling a for sale by owner and they're way out in say Turtle Creek, I know Matt Shanty lives out there and I might not be available to meet with this person, but I can pass the client to Matt and take a referral. I mean, that's still a way to, if it doesn't work out and you're not able to physically be there, you can still leverage it that way. I think the third thing I'll say on that real quickly is I think it also depends on like what your income goals are for real estate. And then doing the numbers work that we walked through a few weeks ago, and getting very clear on the activities you'll need to do within time constraints to hit those goals. And that will start to shape, how you strategize your week. Because really you are your own CEO. It's a blessing and a curse.
Right.
Because you don't, if you're going to drive out to God knows where, you can do that because you are your own boss, but it might not be the best use of your time.
Yeah. And if you refer that to Matt Shanty, it's really easy for him to prioritize if it's Thursday at 7 p.m. and he has something with his kids, and he says no, and like, well, that's what I mean. I guess Tim, I think, said it better than I did. The prioritization of like, it's easy to be like, no, I have to go to my kid's thing. Sorry, Mr. Buyer and Seller. Getting it to the point where like random clients requests is going to have to be a no a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in order to say yes to the things that you actually need to do, it's just saying no to all the bullshit that pops up. And again, it changes. And that's why I think even if it's not a weekly review, just a monthly review, something to start. Like, again, you can't change and improve a habit until you have some sort of habit to change. So
Yeah, 'cause majority of my lead generation, like a lot of it was I hammered a bunch of open houses near like Upper St. Clair, McMurray, places like right up 19 from me. And I was getting decent flow, stuff like that. Right now with, things being a little bit houses and stuff, I was like, oh man. And a lot of my sphere's kind of cold. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, because, just doing this in the part-time until things build up, I'm just kind of going to you guys on, what your starting strategies were and things like that.
yeah, I mean, the starting strategy was I'm going to do this or I'm going to die. Like, I'm serious. That's it's not really the best strategy because it wasn't a strategy. It was I seriously, like, I remember it's really funny because it was one of the examples, like the example that I showed earlier in the meeting with the deal that just closed. Mike was the pharmacy manager of pharmacy that I worked at when I was a pharmacy technician. A lot of my deals to start were just like, it was people who I knew. And I eventually got so anxious to the point that I was like, I have to talk to people and I have to do open houses. Like, my strategy was I didn't have one, and that's why I wanted to find a team and mentorship to join with, because I didn't know how to do a FISBO call. I didn't know how to find the phone number and I didn't know what to say. It's like it's for me though, number one, it was Sphere, the people that I already know, people that know, like, and trust you. Social media is part of that. It's a billboard for your face that you already control for free. Sphere, and then just something like open houses is just so easy to pick an area. And if you just do open houses in Mount Lebanon in around the same price range of 100 grand up or down, sort of, you'll see the same people. I've seen the same people 2 weekends in a row, or 3 actually. The one I did a deal with a buyer who I didn't even really talk to them. I just saw them at 3 open houses and they're like, wow, this, and like they told me afterwards, they're like, yeah, well, you just seemed to be the most, like, you were working all the time. It was like, well, all they know is like I actually wasn't. I spent 6 hours at 3 open houses over 3 weeks. That's not working all the time.
Yeah.
And it was a higher price range buyer where like that 6 hours is worth X amount of dollars at the end. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, the open houses are the silver bullets if you can get those. That's kind of been my go-to, because when I have the weekends off, what better, 2 hours, and then hey, you go to the pool or you do whatever afterwards.
Right.
Hopefully write an offer, but it doesn't always happen that way. But yeah, I'm just kind of looking for, like, right now being the winter time. I mean, I've got my plan, but it worked great in spring and summer. And now I'm kind of like scrambling where I'm like, oh man, it feels like as soon as I got my license last year,
Yeah, it's also the time of the year too. You're not the only one, Dan. Like, that's I don't think that's uncommon, but again, I just double down with the most effective, maximum usable slot of your time that you have within your workday. The highest value level activities, I guess. Lead generating. Even if you did like a farm, like you're farming an area near your house, just become known as Danny B. This is his area, and we'll go to him. Then you start getting some referrals.
Well, and that's where it's like you do open houses, you do something else, you consistently post on social media and run an ad on Facebook. 1, 2, 3, like phone calls, social media ad, open houses. You'll have too many people to call. and it just, or even just two of those, where if you just do open houses, you actually call the three people whose names and numbers you got every week for a week, you'll be the only person who's ever done that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
$15,000 potentially. They're call it $5,000. Like when you close a deal, like I'm just picking a number. It's about that, you know, before taxes and fees and whatever. But it's just, nobody does those. And it goes all the way back into just like I mean, you can make a spreadsheet. I did it to start too, just real quick, because we, you know, want to respect everyone's time and jump off. When I started, I did this where I had, can you see this? On
Yeah.
the, okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Had, instead of like, this is the deal tracking sheet, I had like things I want to do. It was just open house. How many? Like 10. What area? You know, Mount Lebanon, Peters Township, Upper St. Clair. And then I would just look at it and be like, okay, so if I do 10 open houses and then 3 buyers, so I would set it up where like, I'm going to do these areas in this price point, 10 times 3, do 30 open houses. And then I did that, you know, like, and you kind of look at it where like, then the next thing down, you can have, what am I going to do? Open houses, areas, numbers. And then the next column down can be the property addresses of listings in your office, where like the next action, that means I need to call John Smith and see if I can do an open house for him. Call him, schedule it, done. And then all you have to do is show up. You know, and that's how I started, I think, with it too. That hopefully maybe is a better answer to like the system behind it. It's
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna do an open house on Sunday. You're like, well, I don't know where any of them are, because I didn't even decide where to start, you know.
oh yeah, I mean, that's the open houses are definitely a big thing. I mean, I know it got a little slower in the, you know, fall, all that. Our app with where you have people sign in on your tablet or whatever, that's been invaluable. Like I've had so many people, like they walked in, they did I've got a realtor, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, whatever, dude. Then like I started talking to him, like, you know, in one of the other rooms, and all of a sudden they're texting me like, hey, you know what? We want to work with you.
Yeah, well,
And
the thing that no one ever says is like, yeah, you have a realtor. Is like, yeah, well, they're not very good.
I mean, that's like you're on a car lot and a car dealer walks up to, or you know, a salesman walks up. Hey, so are you just looking or looking to buy? It's like, oh, we're just looking.
Yeah.
It's like I've done that even when I was intending to buy.
I've
just
never
because
asked anyone at
it's your
Kohl's for help
natural-
ever.
It's your
Yeah.
natural inclination to do so. Same thing. Do you have an agent? Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's like,
Leave
can I
me
help you with
alone.
anything today, sir? It's like, no, I'm
Do you
gonna
know
touch all
do
these
you have an
shirts before I buy.
agent?
Yeah,
Do you have an agent? Yes. Do you know their name?
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
right. Well, and the one that you just made me think of a good one too, Mike. Someone taught me somewhere where it's like, oh, John at Howard Hanna, EXP, whatever. Oh, you're working with John. Like, well, what's his email? I can just send the information to him. They're like, oh, I don't know his email because I don't know his name. I'll just give you my email.
Yeah.
You know, or just like, because I want to make sure I send you the seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
Oh, you have an agent? Okay, I'll send it to him. What's his email? And if they do, then good. It's not, the goal isn't to take clients. It's to make sure that people have information, but usually they're lying to make you
That's
shut
what
up.
that's what I'll do with the app, Dan. So Mike, with the CRM we use, it's a form you fill out when you walk in. You have them put in info on an iPad. So I'll have them put in the name of their agent on the iPad. And I'll know like, all right, this person's either
Yeah.
serious or not.
Or I'll call their agent and be like, yeah, John Smith came to the open house, because eventually you do real estate long enough and you're just calling your friend.
True.
You know what I mean? And just be like, yeah, hey John, your client came through, like, are they interested? Like, what's up? You know,
Mhm.
and then you're just calling your friend for it. But you're working, you know. So all right, guys, let's wrap it real quick. Do you have any other questions or anything you can think of right now?
I was gonna say, Pete, if you want to email me that sheet you were talking about,
Yeah, man,
that's
absolutely.
that'd be cool. And second thing, if you guys have any good apps for tracking, like say your mileage, stuff like that, and how you guys are doing it, because with tax time coming up, I know we're all really anxious for that one.
That could be a whole useful, we could do that for 5 hours.
Do a lunch and learn on that.
I will definitely send you the email. I use QuickBooks.
I use QuickBooks and it'll track, and I also use Mile IQ.
Oh, okay.
It
Good
also,
stuff.
yeah,
I just been keeping a spreadsheet, and then I'm like, that and using the showing time things, I always go back to those and then just check my miles on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I honestly I would defer to maybe asking an accountant. I don't really know the best way, but I know QuickBooks and I've heard Mile IQ is pretty solid as well. So all right, guys. Hey, I appreciate everyone and talking through everything, and I will speak with you all soon. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
See
Have a good
ya.
one.
All right. See you guys.